And are you refreshed? Good. Now what?
What is up? All right, so I've got a question. Action versus allowing. A little bit of context. So I think I've been a pretty good manifester most of my life. When I was young, I wanted to become a professional soccer player. And so I didn't meditate on that. I just worked my butt off. In business, the same thing has happened. And there's a lot of talk in the entrepreneurial space about hustle, grind, which I don't really agree with. But there's a lot of successful entrepreneurs who have put in the time. So how do you find that balance, or how do you make the distinction between action and then stepping back to allow?
Well, a combination of being in a state of alignment and then receiving the impulse to act, that's the best scenario, because in that way you're tuned in, your inner being who knows where you are in relationship to what you want and who knows exactly what your state of resistance is, then can give you an impulse so that you have that really good timing. If you were acting only without inspiration, then it is more of a grind. And some people do that. They believe that it takes pain to have gain. And so they experience a lot of pain and they do get some gain, but we want to put it into a context that you can really feel with us. We want you to feel the difference between a physical world who is action-oriented, who's not paying too much attention to alignment, who feels competitive. Now, competition's fine, because in competition, often your desires are launched, and a desire that is launched is a wonderful thing. But you need to be in alignment with the desire that is launched in order to feel satisfaction or movement toward it. And so if you are part of that world that is not paying too much attention to alignment, and therefore you are working hard, you are putting in the hours, you are beating the pavement, you are throwing enough mud on the wall, believing that if you throw enough mud up, some of it will stick. Yes, of course, it is easy to differentiate between those who try and those who don't, by those who make an effort and those who don't. We just want you to understand the huge difference in leverage if you are tuned in to broader resources and you are inspired to your action rather than offering effort in resistance.
Sure, that makes sense. Because I love my work. I'm working on the cruise and people are like, what are you working for? I'm like, my life is a vacation. I love what I do. So
often, especially in physical activity, in sports, it's true of so many things, but often the actual physical movement puts you into a state of alignment or allowing. People talk about getting that second wind or getting into the zone. That's what they're talking about. And so it would not be accurate for us to say about others, or even for them to say it about themselves, that it is only through their action that they have achieved the great things that they have achieved.
Yeah, totally. So another kind of a segue question from that is, we help a lot of healers and spiritual teachers and coaches, and two things come up. One is they're so tuned in to this whole it'll come when it's ready, and it's really held them back from taking action because they feel that they're kind of pushing against the allowing of stuff to happen. So
it feels to you that they are not being directive enough of their own intentions, that they're just sort of whatever will be, will be?
Exactly. So just, having that distinction of it's okay to have the effort, have the action, as long as it's aligned.
This is a good way to have this discussion. So sometimes people ask even about the things that they've heard us say over time. Which is it, Abraham? Am I to be a deliberate creator and intend and script and tell the story the way I want it to be? Or am I to get into a state of allowing and just wait for the inspiration? Because it seems like contradictory messages. And that's when we remind you of the steps of creation, where the first step is ask, and contrast causes you to do that even without you knowing it. And the second step is that source lines it up. But if you didn't have the experience that caused you to ask, there wouldn't be anything to line up. And the thing that we've noticed about so many people is that if they hold themselves in that asking mode, because usually when someone is asking for something, they're asking for something that they believe they do not yet possess. And so the absence of what they want is what's dominant in their vibration. And so you can hold yourself in that holding pattern for a long, long time. If you're yearning for it and you really, really want it, and you're so aware that you don't have it, then there is not enough action in the world to compensate for that sort of resistance. And so that's why we're wanting to teach a little balance, that of course you want to ask, but you bring us to a discussion that is really worth having. So let's chew on this just a little bit for masters of creation like those of you who are gathered here. So let's talk about what much of the traditional world thinks of in business or even in sports. It's all around, of setting goals and defining what you want and telling the universe what you want. Well, here's our vantage point of all of that. You have already, through the life that you've lived, done much more of that than you recognize. You have incrementally, with broad strokes and not such broad strokes, you have made your claim to what you want, and it is vibrationally underway. So step 1 and step 2 have already happened. Step 3 is you must find a way of not holding away from you the very thing that you've asked for. And so if you keep taking score, then you often keep renewing your awareness that it hasn't happened yet, which is not true, because it is in the process of happening. And so many people who are setting goals are looking for the manifestation of what they can see and hear and smell and taste and touch, and until they see it, they count it as a goal not yet achieved, when it isn't true. It's a goal underway. It's something in the process of already happening. We want you to let the way you feel be your measurement. And so going back to the very first thing that you said to us, we don't want you to be complacent and disinterested and bored. We want you to be eager and alert. We want you to be satisfied and more.